Buen Camino, everyone. If you watched the last video in this series, Knowing the Way, I just hit stop on that button, and I realized my video is at 21 minutes, so I'm going to try and make this a shorter entry because I don't think I have as much to say about this. But my first book review that I ever did on this channel was for Kevin A. Codd's To the Field of Stars, which has been my favorite Camino memoir that I've read. And I said at that time that he had written a second memoir, which I had picked up after the strength of the first one, and that I wasn't as happy with that book, but that I was going to do a separate review where I could talk about that book separate from my kind of glowing review of To the Field of Stars. And here's that book. It's called Beyond Even the Stars, A Compostela Pilgrim in France, Kevin A. Codd. I think I have a helicopter in the background. You know, I didn't film at the lake because I wouldn't have to deal with wind, and now it's like I've got a helicopter. I'm going to leave this in the video because I actually think this is serendipitous. Just stay with me here. Okay, the helicopter's gone. This is actually, when I say that sometimes, you know, God has a calling or speaks to you, but I say it doesn't actually like talk to you because that'd be crazy, right? I think this is it, right? I start filming this video and then I'm interrupted by like these crazy helicopter going over where there's never a helicopter here. So I want to tie that into this book actually because it's funny that just happened. I loved Kevin's first book and I like this book too, but I don't like it as much. And I will explain why. In the first book, Kevin basically completes his, or Father Codd, if you want to call him Father Codd. I'll just call him Kevin because he seems like a very chill guy. He completes his pilgrimage from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Santiago de Compostela. And I said, like, kind of the only thing that, like, bothered me at all was in the end he was very dismissive. He's like, I'm not going to Finisterre, forget all that. And he's like, I'm done, this is enough. And the interesting part is that in this book, he talks about, he's like, well, I want to walk way further now. Like, now I want to be like a true pilgrim, and I'm going to walk, like, from my front door in Louvain, Belgium, and go all the way to Compostela. And it's kind of funny because it's like, wow, you thought, like, in the last book, like, Saint-Jean de Compostela was, like, enough, and then, like, in this one, he's like, oh, I'll go all the way to Finisterre. I don't know why I wasn't into it last time. And so I was kind of like, no, that's the spirit. But I kind of had a hint from the maps that were in the front of the book that this wasn't going to be a voyage to Compostela, and also the subtitle is A Compostela Pilgrim in France. So I thought maybe he was going to do like the Le Puy route or the Tours route or something like that. No, he's actually walking all the way from Belgium through all of France into Spain and then to Santiago. And as I was getting through the book, I realized that his Camino was going to come short. One, because this book, which the first book talked about his troubles and struggles of any older middle-aged person trying to do the Camino and they're not in perfect shape or whatever, which obviously I'm also not in perfect shape, and let's face it, I'm getting towards middle age. But in this one, his body is really not holding out for him. He's really having a hard time with health issues with his legs and with his feet, and he has to stop several times. It takes him a little while to get going out of Belgium and starting this because obviously the infrastructure is not always there, and he's trying to stay at churches and do different things like that. But there's a bunch of stops and starts throughout this book. And because he's not doing a part of the pilgrimage that is like one of the official trails that kind of funnels everyone together, right? It's not like he's just walking from where he is down one of the GR paths and then eventually going to meet up with some of the pilgrimage routes. But since he's not on one of the main routes, he's not meeting other pilgrims and things like that. So that's a main component of what was amazing about the first book that's just utterly lacking in this book, which is just the nature of the experience and not Kevin's fault as a writer or a thinker or anything. It's just how it happened. But as a person who's reading the book, it like, you know, it kind of guts it. It's almost like, here's a Star Wars movie with no Jedis in it. That's kind of a comparison that I could make. It's like, oh, this is also interesting. There's still many of the elements of the other movies that I enjoy, but I wanted a lightsaber fight. I don't know. I kind of use that because Star Wars has been almost like a religion to me, but it kind of has that feel. It's like the way that he described his fellow pilgrims and the interactions and the insights that he had from those interactions with other people were so much of what I liked about the first book, that not having that in the second book, even though this is like his truth and his lived experience and a different type of story, but it just couldn't hold my interest as well. And I felt really kind of disappointed when I was reading it, because I was like, man, this isn't what I really liked about the first book. And I'm kind of trying to follow along because, you know, every pilgrimage is different. But then he's talking more and more about his physical ailments, and it's also kind of sad because I really like Kevin, and I really like him as a writer and a thinker and as a religious person, and he's very funny. And like I talked about his humor from the first book. It's really sad to see somebody like that just fail. Like the first book is like, things were really hard, but I did it in the end. And this book is like, things were too hard, and no matter how hard I tried, my physical ailments just got worse and I couldn't do it. And then by the time he gets to southern France, he just eventually gives up. You can kind of tell he's going to give up because it's like, well, there's 1,000 kilometers to go and there's 15 pages left in the book. So the end of the book is also really anticlimactic because he just, after struggling through so many physical pains and having to stop and start and take actually like months off, he takes like 6 weeks off in the middle of the book, has to restart and drive places. Eventually he throws in the towel, drives to ends up driving to Compostela or taking the bus to Compostela, and then going to try and get a Compostela, like the document, even though he didn't complete the pilgrimage or walk any of it in Spain. And then he can't get it, obviously, because he's not actually finished at the cathedral and done the last 100 kilometers. And then he says, well, I did hundreds of kilometers in Spain, so I should get it. And they're like, no. And then he was like really mad about that. And I was like, how did you not know, Kevin? Like, you've already done the Camino before and you have a Compostela before. How did you not know that you wouldn't get a second Compostela because you didn't finish it? So I was wondering why he even went there, right? I mean, why not, if you wanted to go to Finisterre, like, why not just go like straight to Finisterre or straight to the Pilgrim's Mass? I wondered why he wanted to get a second Compostela. He didn't finish the pilgrimage, right? So, and like, no shame on that. Like, I mean, he just didn't finish it. But he already had a Compostela. He was just trying to do this to kind of complete the route. I didn't get why he even, because that was the one part where he was kind of bad tempered, and I was like, what? They don't owe you it. Like, I mean, if I don't complete it, if I end up having to stop somewhere, I'm not gonna like go to Santiago and be like, give it to me anyways. I walked over 100K, just give it to me. I'm sorry. So that was one time that I was like, what? So here's my final rundown on the book. If you are going to read a Camino memoir, of all the ones that I have ever read in my life, the hands down best one that I just laughed and felt connected to and intellectually, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, read it, it's amazing, To the Field of Stars by Kevin A. Codd. If you have read that book and you want to read more by Kevin, this is also a book by Kevin A. Codd that is more about pilgrimage. And I think that you will want to read it because that first book is so good. However, if you're just come across Beyond Even the Stars and you have not read To the Field of Stars, don't read this book if you have not read To the Field of Stars. Don't read this book first, and don't read this book alone. Read that first book. And then this is more of a companion piece to that book. This is some other insights about a different type of pilgrimage. But for God's sakes, don't read this book alone. This won't give you, this won't really put anything into perspective until you've read the first book. Pick another Camino memoir by somebody that only wrote one. There's tons out there, and I'll try to keep reviewing them on this channel. I will review more memoirs. I have read a bunch of them. I'm not sure what I will review next because I just kind of ticked off the 2 boxes that I had with my history book and my other review of Kevin A. Codd. All I can say is I love Kevin, loved his first book. His second book is well worth reading if you've read the first book. And I'll be back with more reviews soon. And buen Camino, everyone.